Welcome to Your Time, Your Money, the show where we value your time just as much as your money because we know it's important to you. We always want to bring education and knowledge to you in an easy understand format. And today with me, I have our other partner, Adam Jones, who we like to refer to as Matt Turillo's stunt double.
Yes,
For those of you know Matt Turillo. How you doing today?
I'm as big as an advisor as him with just in terms of in my mind. So, in terms of size. So anyway,
you can do all the stunts, no problem.
Yes, no problem. I'm much more flexible, so it's all right.
Always a good thing. Well, welcome today.
Appreciate it.
First time on the podcast, but very valuable team member, has been with us the whole time, and really part of the concept of getting this show up and running, which is great. You have some media background, I believe.
Yeah. So I worked with, and it's funny because today's topic really hits home for myself because I worked with business owners for about a good at least 12 to 13 years before changing directions career-wise. And, working with business owners and seeing firsthand issues that they come across in their own planning. And, obviously we're going to talk more about that today. But, it's been an interesting ride to get here. And so I look forward to talking more about it.
Yeah, so perfect topic today. It's working with your employer plan. So whether that's 401k, 403b, individual retirement account, right? You have a lot of experience with simple and set plans for self-employed business owners. So we're going to delve into those. We're going to delve into a lot of topics on those. So you ready to get started?
I am.
Great. Well, it's your time.
Your money.
All right. Do us the favor. Let's get started into it. So, I think the first thing we always like to identify with work plans is how little people know about their plans. And when we ask questions for individuals that are investing about their plans, a lot of people don't have any clue about the options that are available, about how to pick the choices, and what questions to ask. So hopefully today we can shed some light on those questions, and you can go back to your employer, ask them, get a little bit more knowledge about your plan, and really utilize them the best that you possibly can.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people, particularly when they're first starting out working, if they're working for a company that has a employer-sponsored plan in place, oftentimes young people get out of college, they don't start doing right away what they should be doing, which is in some capacity saving for their future. And we're obviously going to address that today, but it's also one of those components to that, well, I don't really know how that works, so I didn't really do anything. Or bills are tight right now, so I'm not going to do anything.
And there's always the one guy at the plan that always says, I wish I had done it sooner. And then tells us, I encourage every young person to come in to get it started right away. Doesn't matter the plan.
That's
every
correct.
Employer, there's always that one person.
One guy.
Or girl. Right?
Or girl.
That's saying, hey, you know what? You got to do this now because you're only 18 and the amount of money you can save.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's get into some of the common things that people don't understand about their plans to begin with. And part of that is employer contributions or things that you can add to your plan, the limits and what they are, right? Most retirement plans start off as a pre-tax vehicle. So to put $100 into the plan, you only see maybe $80-some out of your paycheck because it's going in pre-tax. So it's not the full 100 that comes out of your paycheck, about $80-some on every 100 that you put into the plan. So it's actually a very affordable way to invest is going into the plan pre-tax.
And often people like the fact that they don't see it. If they don't see it, they don't spend it. Right? It's that whole concept of the money is already coming, I'm getting my paycheck and the portion that I am saving is already moved aside.
Yeah,
so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Yep, exactly.
One of the best ways to invest, out of sight, out of mind.
Yep,
right?
Absolutely.
And that's something we encourage everybody to do is break that pattern of living paycheck to paycheck is to start some type of either it's a work plan or investment plan through us that could, just basically put a little hedge between them being able to grab it and spend it.
Right.
Because if it's there, I know in my household, if it's there, it's spent.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's you kind of consider it as a cost basis, right? Where if you're saying, I'm going to spend $10 a day on coffee. Well, again, if that is something that is your cost of your day, then savings should take just as much precedence as your coffee. And if you're not, seeing those dollars, it's much more, tucked away and waiting for another day.
Yeah, and it's important to understand what your employer offers, whether you're going to be there 1 year, 10 years, or 30 years.
Right.
And the common thing we see a lot of times is people will go to an employer and they won't do the plan because they're mentally saying, I'm not going to be here long.
Yep.
Right? They're there 2 years or 3 years, and then they jump to another employer and they say the same thing. And they're there 2 or 3 years, and they jump to another employer, they're there 5 years. And then by the time they get to their third or fourth employer, they're 15 years towards retirement.
Yep.
They have no money put away because they didn't think it was important to do the plans early.
Sure. And we were talking about the idea of, what does the employer do for the employee? And often when they have matching programs, and sometimes there's a vesting. Sometimes, an employee has to be there a certain amount of time, like 12 months. Sometimes they offer it right away. But that incentive of a match that the employer offers should be enough to say, wow, I should at least be putting money in up to that component of that match, just so that I'm putting money away. So even if I do jump down to a different job or different career 3 years down the road, at least I've got something that I can do a rollover into something else down the road.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize, and we'll get into that in a second, that you can start combining those plans as you leave employers and go to the next employer.
Right.
Right. And I put it this way, if there's a match on the table that your employer is offering, usually it's somewhere like you put away $1, we'll match $1 up to a certain percentage.
Right.
3%, 6%. I've seen plans. My wife actually had a plan where for every $1 she put in up to a certain percentage, there was a match of $2.50. So there's some very lucrative plans out there.
Sure. Yeah.
And I put it this way, if you're walking down the street and somebody throws a bag of money on the street, you're going to pick it up. Mm-hmm. Right? Well, that's what the match is. It's free money that your employer's giving you with one caveat. You have to add to get to it. And in some plans, actually, you don't even have to add.
Right.
They'll add to the plan.
Yep.
But to not know that match and not know what free money you're missing out on, that's a big detriment to your financial plan.
Do you know that if I'm doing a financial review with a client and I ask them, I'll ask everybody, what are you contributing to your 401k? What's your company match? I will bet you at least 50 to 60% of the time, people don't know what the match is. They say, you know what, I'm not sure. I'll have to check on it. That's an important part of your own financial plan, is knowing what is coming in that your max amount that you're receiving from your employer, because that helps to free up dollars for other potential, and we've talked about this in other podcasts, but diversification of your portfolio, and allows you to put dollars into other buckets. But you need to know what your contribution match is from your employer. And again, most of the I would say a little more than half of the time, people don't even know what the match is.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you the question on contribution limits, because I think that's important to understand. Contribution limits change over a period of time. And a lot of times we'll run into people, even with a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, that are saying, I'm maxing out. And I'll ask them, well, how much are you doing? And they say $2,000.
Right.
Well, it hasn't been 2,000 in like 15 years.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So keeping educated and up to date on how those plans change over a period of time and how they keep increasing their limits. Mm-hmm. And, so for instance, for a 401k, right, you can put quite a bit of money away.
Yeah, a person can put upwards of $20,500 away as of 2022. And these limits, these max limits, they do go up about every year or two. The Roth IRA and the traditional IRA, those maxes stayed the same as last year at $6,000 or $7,000 for a person that's 50 plus for what's called a catch-up. But for a 401k, an individual that's under 50 can put upwards of $20,500 up to away, and then for 50 plus, you can put an additional $6,500 away on top of that. Now
it's called catch-up. It's not mustard,
right,
but it's catch-up. So you can catch up if you're behind on savings.
Exactly.
Right? And that allows you, once you're 50, to put away more money than somebody that's not.
Yep. And, we understand certainly that not everybody's going to be in the boat where they can max out their 401k just based on their bills and their standard of living. But it's to know exactly what you can do. Maybe it's not today, maybe it's down the road, but it's important to know what you can do.
Yeah, and an employer plan is always something you can do more or less with whenever you want, and you can come back to. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is you may want to put away just as much as they're matching.
Right.
And then you may want to redirect your savings to perhaps something, if it's in your best interest, a Roth IRA.
Correct.
Once the Roth is maxed, maybe you want to come back to your 401k and then add more to get to your affordability level.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, having, understanding the flexibility in your savings plan, your retirement savings plan is important. And that's where, obviously we help our clients in that capacity, because a lot of times people just think, well, I'm just going to put 12% into my 401k, when the max match that they're getting from their employers maybe 3%. And now you've got 7% that's going, what did I say? I just
9%.
said 9%. Going into a vehicle that is managed differently than perhaps other potential ways to save.
Yeah, retirement's retirement.
Right.
You can throw out the name 401k, Roth,
Yep.
traditional IRA. I mean, it's retirement.
Right.
You can have money sitting on its own in a non-retirement account, and it's still retirement money. If you need it in retirement, you can get to it. Right. But, so one, understand your match, right? Important. And the other thing that we find that people have no clue about is whether their plan offers a Roth option. And that's very, very powerful for you in retirement. And it's simply asking your employer or the plan sponsor whether they include it or not. This allows the participant the ability to redirect their cash flow to either pre-tax money or post-tax money, being a Roth IRA. Well,
Right.
what's the difference between the two?
So when you are in a Roth IRA, it goes in post-tax, it grows tax-free, it's distributed tax-free, and it's not subject to the required minimum distribution law as out of age 72. The caveat for a Roth is that the employer cannot contribute to it. They can only contribute to what we will call the traditional 401k. In that case, the traditional 401k is going to go in pre-tax. It grows tax deferred. Distributions are taxable. It goes to your beneficiaries taxable. It does consider the RMD law, required minimum distribution law, at age 72.
And the nice thing about a Roth in your employer plan is you may be a higher net worth individual that
Right.
can't add to a Roth IRA on your own
Right.
because your income is too high. You may be able to take advantage of it through your 401k when you couldn't do it on your own.
Right.
And it could even be a Roth and deferred comp if you're a state worker.
Right.
Or, so just knowing the availability of that is very powerful in retirement.
You just said something that reminded me of the point that so many people out there, and you, as Mark, you just said, you need to ask your employer, do you offer a Roth component to your plan? And oftentimes I'll meet with deferred comp, New York State workers that didn't or do not know that there is a Roth component to the deferred comp plan.
Yeah, and even for teachers,
Yep.
there's certain 403Bs in certain school districts
Right.
where they've approved the Roth 403B.
Yep.
But there's perhaps teachers that have been there 20 years that have been doing all pre-tax, didn't know that the employer changed the availability in the plan, and now they can offer a Roth, but they've missed down on it for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So constantly being aware of your plan, what it offers, and how to use it is very important.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing that we want to touch on is how people pick their choices in the 401ks.
Yeah. That is, we have this kind of running joke on this show, but it's true, is the water cooler person often is the person that's saying, oh, well, I don't know what funds to pick. And the coworker goes, oh, yeah, this one's pretty good here. And
or
this
the janitor
one's
cleaning at night coming through.
The janitor, comes through and says, well, I like, this or that mutual fund. And that's the problem is that there's often not a lot of education or more of a selection basis based on anything other than what date am I looking to retire? Well, I'm going to retire in 30 years, so I'll do what's called a target fund.
Yeah, and that's the benefit to working with an advisor.
Right.
That not only looks at the plan, but also all your other assets outside of that.
Right.
Because you may want to have a certain risk tolerance that's different in your plan from your other money.
Right.
Right? We always encourage people, have a lot of the growth-oriented securities in a Roth. Right? If you're going to maximize return and be aggressive, why not do it in a tax-free vehicle versus, say, a taxable vehicle?
Right.
Or even just a tax-deferred vehicle, right? So the positioning of your assets really needs to be kind of put into context with the rest of your portfolio.
Right.
Right? You can't just go in there, look at the past return and say, well, this one has the highest past return, right? Because that's not indicative of future results.
Yep. Yep.
And some people just close their eyes and point and say, well, I'm going to pick this one.
I have, it's funny, I have come across people that have said, I say, well, how often do you look at your 401k portfolio? And they'll say, I never look at it. So they haven't had it properly reviewed. I've run into people that say, I haven't changed that since I set it up 15 years ago or whatever it was. So you're in the same mutual funds from 15 years ago to now. Well, my return's been pretty good. Okay, well, could it have been better? I don't know, right? But the fact that it has not been reviewed or changed. And then, like I said, I often will get well, how did you make your choices? I don't know. My guy sitting next to me told me what funds to pick.
Yeah. And the great thing about most plans is a lot of plans nowadays have target maturity retirements in there.
Right.
So for the people that don't want to put the time and effort to analyzing their research, there's a lot of target maturity funds, and what they are is they're usually titled with the name of the fund, and then they end in a date.
Right.
2025, 2030, 2050. Right. That date's intended to be the day you plan on retiring. Because what that portfolio does is it makes it more of a conservative investment as you get closer to that date automatically for you.
Yep.
That's a pretty neat tool. I mean, that's a pretty neat tool that a lot of people don't take advantage of, and just because they don't understand it. And you hit on something that just reminded me of something. You talked about how often have you made a change, and people say never. Think about that in the terms of how often have you reanalyzed or changed your beneficiary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? A lot of times people have been working somewhere and they started working there and they established the plan before they had kids, maybe before they were married, maybe they were married and divorced, and now their ex is still on as beneficiary.
Yep.
Right? There's a lot of problems with not analyzing just the beneficiary of your plan.
Sure. I actually have come across, even on a different level, people that have, that beneficiary passed away. I need to put someone else there. But
they knew.
They knew, but they didn't realize it until it was reviewed. And you say, oh, well, okay, so you're, this is still your beneficiary. Oh, actually, they passed away. That was, so-and-so. It's crazy, but people forget about that stuff.
And they say you can't take it with you, but in that case, they're trying.
Literally.
So that, it comes to, another good point is, with the not rebalancing is, some plans allow for automatic rebalance. And it's a feature that you can sign up for within your plan where automatically, whether on an anniversary date or a certain period of time, every quarter or things along that lines, where it automatically rebalances. And why is that important?
Well, I mean, it keeps you on the path, right? So if you're, think of it like you're driving down the street and you kind of let go of the wheel and the car just kind of drifts, right? And you have to put
I've
your hands.
I've never done that before, by the way, but
you have to put your hands on the wheel to get back into the center of the road, right? The road changes, your car has to change with the road. And that's really the point of it, right? Is when you're rebalancing, that's what you're doing. You're making sure your car is staying on the path.
Yeah, you might say to yourself, I'm a moderate investor. But because the stock portion of your portfolio outperformed the other portions, it may have drifted you, like that car, into a more aggressive portfolio than you want to take risk on.
Right.
And to rebalance is to bring some of that moderation back so that you're back in your comfort level.
Yep.
Right. And it's always great to see the upside, but not always great to see the downside.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, by just not rebalancing, you're setting yourself up for more volatility.
The interesting thing is you just reminded me of this. I had a couple clients recently that with all of the fluctuations that the market has given us this year so far, right? It's just been crazy. In both cases, the people were moderate conservative risk tolerance is how they identified themselves. And they said, well, that's what I picked my mutual funds on in my 401k. And I look and I said, yeah, those are aggressive. You're in an aggressive portfolio. And that's why you're seeing you're dropping like you are with the market. And they said, really? And I said, yeah. And that's why, again, kind of going back to it's important to get the professional advice. So now he's, in this case of the one client, I'm thinking of it, now he's kind of looking back and going, oh, what did I do? When he could have gotten that question answered, when he was making his choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And, not understanding the investment, not understanding what choices to pick, that's where we come into play.
Right.
That's where reaching out to an advisor, getting an honest and fair look at it. And one of the nice services that we have is a site called AdviceWorks that allows clients to link their 401k, and we can view what they're in.
Yep.
So we can do independent reviews of their accounts, even without talking to them, be able to pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, you know what? I see your risk models went a little bit further one direction because of the market movement. Why don't you send me the investment choices again so I can rebalance you and give you some advice and guidance? We can offer that advice and guidance, and then they can go in and manually do it.
Right.
So that's one of the benefits of working with a firm that allows us the access to view the investment portfolio in combination with their other investments.
Yep. Yeah, it's a very robust program, and it allows us to, keep an eye on things and help clients in advance.
Yeah, very important. So, hey, we're at that period of time in our podcast where we always like to do a little bit of community spotlight time. Always an exciting time. This is the time in our broadcast where we try to spotlight or highlight a community firm that does right by the community, provides value and services. So we've got a great one today. I'm going to let you introduce who we're spotlighting today.
Yeah, today we're talking about the Missouri home team at CM Fox Realty, led by Jamie Missouri. She's been in sales for 20 years. She's one of the top reps in the agents in the area, and she goes above and beyond. I mean, check out her Facebook page. Her clients rave about her, and it's because she takes the extra step. She's done done a lot of great things for. She's talking to my parents. No place. Not just locally. My parents are out in the Utica area, and she's looking to help them with their property, and other clients that I've had the pleasure of being able to work with her on, and just does a really great job. And again, you talk about levels of customer service that are off the charts, and that it's not just about how quick can I sell your home, or what can I make off this person? Oftentimes in the housing industry, I think you run into that, particularly in the way the market was over the last couple of years, right? Rates were the lowest they've ever been. Markets, flying, houses are flying. But what's important for her is that the client is taken care of, and again, she's one of the top agents in the market, and I think it's worth having a great meeting with her to see if you're considering selling your house.
Where can people reach out to her?
Sure. Her phone number is 518-929-4475. Her email is jmazuryk, and that's MAZURYK @cmfox.com.
Awesome. So. Great business to highlight for this episode. So, let's delve back into the 401k and just kind of some of the things that people don't understand. And one part of that employer plan market, is people refer to it as the 401k all the time.
Sure.
Right. Or 403b with the 403bs for nonprofit. But we have a lot of clients that are independent business owners, like the Community Spotlight.
Yep, exactly.
Right, and they don't necessarily have a 401k, or they're looking to start something.
Yep.
Right, so let's delve a little bit into some plans that sole proprietor or self-employed people can start. They may not necessarily want to start a 401k. Certain 401ks have higher internal fees for administration fees, things along that lines, and sometimes they don't make sense unless you have a lot of employees.
Right. Yep. So kind of starting at the beginning, right? If it's a sole proprietorship, oftentimes people don't know that there's an option called a SEP IRA, SEP IRA. And the SEP IRA is a great tool for a business owner to be able to put money away for retirement while they're working. It helps them to save on taxable income because it's pre-tax dollars that go into the SEP. The contribution limits are quite high, where you can do whichever is less, 25% of your earned income, up to $61,000 max for 2022. And these can be huge tax savers now, while putting away money for the future. And again, this is different than I guess a traditional IRA or Roth IRA, where you can only hit $6,000 on a max or $7,000 if you're over 50.
And that's more designed for a sole proprietor.
Sole proprietor, yes.
Because if you're going to put, say, the 25% in, you've got to do it across the board for all the employees.
Yep.
So, another plan that they may want to do if they have employees is the simple.
Yes.
Right. And I'm not saying it's simple to do, but although it is fairly simple to do, the simple IRA allows you, if you have employees in your small business, let's say you've got 10, 20, 30 employees.
100 or less.
It gives you the ability to put money away, have a match to it that you can match maybe up to 3%. And it also allows you then to help maintain employees, right? Because if you think of it like this, a lot of employees will leave, right? And staffing is always the hardest part for most companies.
Sure.
Most employees will leave because of a benefit package.
Right.
The lack thereof, right? So just by being able to offer the simple through your practice helps people feel like hey, you know what? I have more value working here. I'm not going to necessarily walk across the street and get a better deal over somewhere else, right? So that's simple, and not everybody will necessarily take advantage of it, but just being able to offer it as a business owner is key.
Sure.
And if you are with a small business and you do have a simple IRA, it's very similar to a 401k in the sense that there's a match. You have to put away a contribution, and they'll match, and usually it's up to 3%. The limits are a little bit lower than the 401k, but it does allow you to accumulate some really nice assets within that plan.
Sure. One thing to highlight in comparison of a 401k, an actual 401k or 403b plan in some cases, versus a SEP IRA or a simple IRA, is that the SEP IRA and simple IRAs don't fall under the rule of ERISA. And I don't know if you want to touch on that for a second, but what it means is that the choices of mutual funds or investment options are far greater with a SEP IRA or a simple IRA. In addition to the fiduciary requirement falls upon an advisor, in our case, like for example, us as advisors. And as a fiduciary, we have certain standards that we have to do to stay in the best interest of a client. ERISA simply has to offer 3 options for investments. And while they have the rule of you have to be in the office at least or accessible once a year, oftentimes, usually that's done with an email that goes out to everybody in the company and say, so-and-so from this company is going to be here in the conference room if anybody wants to meet. And that's pretty much it. Their duty is fulfilled. With a SEP or a simple plan, oftentimes what we do is we go in and we meet and we do full reviews. And it gives an employee more options rather than just a simple, here you go. Take these, pick this.
And that's something that we as professionals, as a team, as the Esley Group, we try to practice what we preach, and that's doing the holistic approach.
Sure.
Whereas we don't look at a 401k or a simple or SEP as like our asset, not our asset, just a plan that we're offering.
Right.
If we're offering a plan like that, we want to not only meet with all the employees and let them know what it is and whether they want to take advantage of it or not, but we also want to meet with their spouse.
Right.
We want to talk about the holistic picture and not just go in there for a sign-up day. We don't want to go in there and just do a sign-up day and you see the guy once a year or, maybe once every 3 years or whatever it might be, and, and not have the advice or guidance. And, a lot of people don't use the advice and guidance that's with their plan, whether it's with us or not.
Right.
They don't call the 800 number. They don't, consult with the phone services that they have and stuff. And that's all encouraged, right? With any plan, is you want to make sure you have those advice and guidance on there.
Well, as we said, the road twists and turns, goes up and down, with hills. And, we have to navigate that road. And oftentimes people, like I said, people set their wheels in motion 15 years ago and haven't done anything with their plan. Yeah. Because they just, I don't know if you remember the old Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. Oh. It's the whole idea of, I'm just going to, and then at the bottom it would say on the old infomercial, it would say at the bottom, don't actually forget it may cause a fire. And that to me is so often we come in across that where people, I put it there and I haven't really looked at it. It might be on fire. You might want to look.
Yeah. Well, one of the nice things about being able to offer the holistic approach is a lot of times employers will come to us and they'll say, listen, we're not looking at changing our plan, but we don't get really much service from our existing provider. Yeah. So what we'll go in there is we'll offer financial wellness programs.
Yeah.
and financial wellness programs cover a wide variety of different topics, not necessarily just 401k, but we've done financial wellness, talks where we've talked about Social Security planning and Medicare, estate planning, and financial wellness programs are important for employers to implement because, a lot of times the stress when somebody's at work, it's not necessarily financial, pertaining to the 401k. It's my kid's going to college next year, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
Or I'm broke and I'm trying to buy my first home. Right. And those financial wellness programs cover those topics and help alleviate stress. And if you can alleviate stress within your employees, you have better production from an employer standpoint.
Right.
So not only do employees have the benefit of the 401k program and receive the benefits of the financial wellness program, but the employer also receives a lot of benefit from that financial wellness program.
Sure.
We have a lot of clients that call us and just say, hey, you know what? Our company doesn't offer that. So we say, well, who's your contact person? Let us reach out to that person that runs it.
Yep.
And we can come in there and offer a financial wellness program and bring some value in education.
Yeah. The value in education, like you just said, that's the key thing. I think, there's a reason why, they say the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor, if you will. And all that has to do with is just education and knowing what you can do, getting the questions answered. Most people know that there's some things they should be doing, but they don't know, so they don't do anything. They don't make any changes. They don't make those next steps and take those next steps. And like you said, whether it's a topic of how to save for college or can I retire, and what are the next steps if I'm going to look to retire next year, and what does that look like? All of those components that shake a person's mind every day.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Well, and, one thing to consider too, and we usually save this for last because it's actually probably the best concept within any type of employer plan, and not everybody can take advantage of it, but a lot of plans have written into the plan something called an in-service distribution.
Right.
An option that allows you, and this is very important for our listeners to understand this, especially if they're getting ready to retire, right? If they're in that baby boomer generation and they've been in their plan for 20 years, 30 years, and they have a sizable amount of assets in there, an in-service distribution, if it's written into your plan document, could allow you to do an in-service rollover. So while you're working there, you may, if your plan allows it, be able to roll your money out to an IRA.
Right.
Now, why would you want to do that? Right? You'd want to roll your money out so you can start getting your ducks in a row so that when you retire, you're ready.
Right.
You've moved to different asset classes. Maybe you've moved and diversified to different vehicles in an IRA.
Sure.
Maybe you've gotten those IRAs outside of the 401k set up and designed to provide income for you.
Right.
So you can
add a layer of protection.
Yeah, you can bring a lot of the pre-planning into retirement.
Yep.
Before you officially retire.
Right. And still put money towards the current 401k while you're still working.
Yeah, and some in-service distributions are allowed at any point, and some are allowed after 59 and a half.
Right.
Well, if you're a baby boomer, you're probably after 59 and a half and you're getting ready to retire.
Sure.
Right? Well, why leave it into a plan that might not necessarily be where it needs to be when you retire? Right. If you can start that process early, that's a huge advantage.
Well, and think of it too, just in terms of, again, what's been going on in the market right now. I've had a couple people that are they were planning on retiring this year. They didn't do an in-service rollover, and now they're watching their 401k go up and down, like the wind.
Yeah, in 2009, right after 2008, we saw a lot of people, and the common, I don't want to say joke, but it was a joke that most people were saying was my 401k is now a 201k, right? Because they didn't do the planning ahead.
Right.
They maybe had the option to do an in-service, but they never asked.
Right.
They never talked to an advisor whether they should or not.
Yep.
And that's a very important thing that can help also protect your asset outside of the 401k.
Sure.
And diversify you more.
And it's not going to necessarily be for everybody to do. It's just going to be a matter of something that, as Mark just said, something that you're going to want to consider or take a look at. What could that look like given scenario A, B, C, and D?
Yep.
You know,
And we've even incorporated in partial in-service distributions just to get the portions of the plan that we want to protect or into an income strategy done ahead of time before retirement.
Yep.
And the nice thing about doing that is what I find from clients is after we do that planning, they usually say, well, I'm only going to be there for as long as until they tick me off. And then,
right. Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And now that they're confident with the plan, they're free to like just be at ease their last couple years.
Yes.
And they know they've already done the plan, and they literally go in with that attitude to work every day and say, I'm going to be here for as long as I enjoy it.
Right.
And the minute somebody makes it uncomfortable for me, I'm out.
Yep. I actually had that conversation 2 weeks ago with a client. It's the exact same conversation. It's so funny.
It's amazing. You start doing hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of appointments, and there's common trends and common terminologies that people use in the retirement mindset. So I think we did a nice job of covering different topics today for the simple, the SEP, and different employer plans. Any last minute things you want to touch on?
Again, I think that it becomes. If you don't know, ask the questions. And the best way to do that is to talk to a financial professional like the Essley Group. A lot of times, like I said, people, particularly business owners, we talked about that, is business owners not knowing that they can save on taxes. And often accountants don't even bring this up, which is kind of a strange thing for me if someone is a 1099 employee or 1099 or a independent contractor or self-employed, is they don't know that they can do this and their accountants aren't telling them. And not all of them, of course, there are certainly ones out there that do, but it's an important part of any strategy, and being able to put away the max amount you can. And look, let's face it, no one wants to, pay more taxes than they have to. They want to pay less taxes than they have to. And these vehicles are great ways to do that for employers.
Yeah, great. So, so to recap some takeaways, that our listeners can do. Very first thing is talk to your resource person, the person in charge of the 401k at your work, right? Get them involved, ask the simple questions. What's the match? What do I have to do to maximize the match? What's the most I can do into the plan? Ask those simple questions. Then you start delving into other questions that are just as important. Is there a Roth option for me to available, right? Are my beneficiaries up to date? If you don't know, just request a new form.
Right.
Fill it out. What's the worst that happens? It's a duplicate of what they have on file, but at least it's accurate. So, quick takeaways, understand your plan, know your plan. Work with an advisor, get diversified, make sure your investments are matching the rest of your portfolio, and then most importantly, tie that into your distribution strategy.
Right.
See if your plan has the options of in-service distributions, when you can do it, what age you can do it, and then ask your advisor, does that make sense for me? And then also, in that conversation with that key person, ask them, say, hey, does the company offer financial wellness? And if they don't, well, maybe they want to consider a resource like our group,
right,
so that we can come in there and help them out, help your employees out as well.
Right.
So some takeaway items is just make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's. And that's what we're here for. Let's get into, maybe just the last jovial section of our get together here, and that's minute by minute. I know you recently went on vacation. Where'd you go? What'd you do?
So my family and I, a total of 15 of us went on a
well, they're not all yours, right?
Well, no, not all. I know. 15 of us.
I think you only have 3 kids. Last I checked.
Went to the Bahamas on a cruise, and for the first time ever, I got sunburn on my eyelid. Yeah, it was very comfortable. Very comfortable. That's the
Apparently, you were on a pirate ship because you got both of them.
Right. I told my daughter, I said I should wear an eye patch. She said, I said, I don't know. Anyway, but it was a great time, and it was the first time that we've been able to cruise. This was a cruise that we booked 2 years ago. COVID hits, right, and then it ended up getting moved twice. So we were actually able to go. Originally, there was going to be 25 of us that were going to go. 15 ended up actually going, but we had a blast. It was a lot of fun. It was nice to get some some sunshine and some sunburn. We all had a great time.
Yeah, I don't burn. I go past red to purple. Right. Just fair skin in my family, which is.
I do tan. It's the first time I've ever had that happen. It happened to my wife once, long ago, like probably 10 years ago. It happened to her as well. One eyelid just got sunburned. I don't know.
Oh, great.
Weird. Yeah, I don't know.
And I'll ask you because I asked Matt the same thing. Any favorite hotspots around Albany you like to go to? Anything like that?
I like there's some areas in Guilderland that I like. Mixed breed brewing. Friends of mine have that place, and other than that, it's usually spent at sporting events with the kids, soccer fields, baseball fields, tennis courts, things like that. So it's it's a lot of sightseeing of sport fields.
One of the benefits of we're in 22 different states, and one of the benefits is as we travel to see clients, we always get to find new places and stuff. I looking for the diners, drive-ins, and dives type stuff.
Oh yeah.
And trying to find some of those places when I'm traveling and visiting a client or what have you.
Yeah.
So that's one of the exciting things is once you get out there, you start finding some really neat places to go.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
So well, great. Let's tell people how they can find us. Once again, it's the SC Group of Cetera Investors. We're at 43 British American Boulevard, first floor, Latham, New York, 12110. You can reach us at 800-222-3202. And as always, yourtimeyourmoney.net. And that's .net for your net worth. We thank you for tuning in. Hopefully we can provide some more education and information for you in our next podcast. So great job. Have a good day.
You as well.